Today we got a story of this absolutely crazy Karen that tries to ruin and actually probably successfully ruins her own son's wedding, which is completely shocking to me. Subscribe if you like stories, and let's call today's subscriber, let's call him Axel. Also, sorry if my voice sounds a little weird. It's I'm still getting over my wisdom teeth, and that's a longer process than I expected. But hey, I'm able to make videos, so I'm happy. So anyways, right, this all started when Axel's dad's friend was getting married. All right, so Axel's a subscriber, he has a dad, and his dad's friend is getting married, so the dad's friend invites Axel's dad and the entire family to go to the wedding. So Axel, at this point, has never been to a wedding in his life, so even though he doesn't know this guy really that well, he's just kind of excited to go to a wedding because, I don't know, man, it's a pretty fun ceremony. I mean, good food. I mean, it's going to be all dressed up. It's an excuse to do something fun. Weddings are fun, man, except when crazy Karens try and ruin them, as you'll see in today's video. But anyways, right, so let's just skip ahead to the day before the wedding. So if you don't know, there's something in a lot of weddings where you have like a dinner beforehand that's pretty big, and that weddings are normally more than one day, even if the ceremony is just one day. So anyways, let's skip ahead to the day before the wedding. So this was like the formal dinner thing, and all the parents and all the friends and family were there. They're getting to know each other, and Axel and his parents were sat at a table that was kind of far away. If you don't know, like normally the closer the tables to the bride and groom, that normally means like, I don't know, immediate family, and then afterwards very, very close friends. And Axel's dad was friends with the guy who was getting married, but they weren't like brothers from birth or anything like that, man. So like Axel and his family, they were sitting kind of farther back, and they were sat with some random people. And this is where Axel was given a bit of the background lore per se about I'm just gonna call him the groom. Remember, the groom is gonna be the guy, Axel's dad's friend who's getting married. I'm gonna shorten that to just say the groom. So this is where Axel got the kind of the background lore about the groom and his mother, who was not a fan of who the groom was about to marry. So basically, right, Axel and his parents were sat down at this table. And the other people sitting at this table, Axel's parents, and didn't really know, but they started talking because you're sat down with random people, and they're like, hey, how do you know the groom? And they're like, oh, we're friends with the wife who's getting married, or the bride, I should say. We're friends with the bride. This is super exciting. And then they said, hey, do you know about the groom's mom? And Axel's dad's like, no, like, what's up with the groom's mom? And they're like, oh, so you don't know? And Axel's dad is like, I don't know what? So anyways, right, you know, these friends go on to say, all right, well, strap in because this is kind of a crazy story. Yes, only on the Pugs channel will you ever find a story within a story. That's how you know this place is special and you should subscribe. Anyways, right, so the people are explaining to Axel and his parents that, you know, the groom has a mother, and the mother is like, we're just going to call her the Karen, right? So when I refer to the Karen, I'm referring to the groom's mom. So anyways, right, the Karen did not approve of the wife at all. And the thing is, right, it isn't really grounded in reality. Maybe the people telling Axel's parents were a little bit biased because they were friends with the bride. But at the end of the day, right, the bride seemed to be pretty normal. She seemed to check out. There was no obvious reasons why someone would dislike her. But sure enough, right, the Karen was very upset and very angry because, like, her son, she's like, oh, this person isn't good enough to be part of our family bloodline or whatever, which, like, she's not going to be technically part of the bloodline, bro. Like, yeah, she will be probably giving birth to your kids, which will be part of your bloodline, but she's just like, look, she's just the wife, dude. It's not like, at the end of the day, you got to let your son or the groom decide what, you know, you can't make, this isn't an arranged marriage, bro. Like, he's going to make up his mind. At the end of the day, maybe you aren't the biggest fan, but you got to just kind of like, I don't know, bite your lip in that situation and make the best of it. Because you know what? You don't want to lose your son. And the Karen probably lost her son by the end of this story, but you guys will hear pretty soon. So anyways, right, the Karen did something crazy, right? Because the Karen did not want this wedding to happen. The Karen did not want her son to get married to this woman. So what she did was she ended up trying to expose the bride with fake information. So basically, you know, Axel wasn't actually told exactly what this fake information was, but the Karen tried to fabricate like a false police report, and the police report was something really terrible. And she was like, oh my God, I did research on your bride, and she's really an evil criminal. Look, here's proof. And the thing is, right, you know, the groom was like pretty startled at first because it was a pretty serious like crime that was on on the police report. And he went to his bride and was like, hey, like, my mom just showed me this. Is it true? Like, I feel a little upset that you would hide this from me. And the bride goes on to say that, like, that's ridiculous and that, like, it's not like that. She has no police report, and that if she wants, like, to go to the police department with him, like, she'll sit down, she'll let him go through all of her records, like, that this is 100% fake and fabricated. So at this point, right, the groom is thinking, wait, did my mom lie to me and make this up? Or is my wife really just trying to pull a bluff on me? So the husband, or not the husband, I guess the groom at this point, because they aren't married at this point, is like, hey, like I want to believe you, but just because it's like between you and my mom and I don't want to have to pick sides without evidence, do you mind if we actually do go ahead to the police office? And, you know, the bride was like, yeah, that's totally fine. There's a reason why I offered it. Like, I'm just kind of upset your mom did this. And, you know, the groom's like, all right, well, that's totally understandable if this is fake. So the bride and groom go to the police office, and the police office kind of goes through the records or whatever, and sure enough, pulls up her records. I'm not 100% sure how that works. Maybe you have to go somewhere else, not the police office. But either way, like, they go and verify the records, and it turns out to be 100% fake. So the groom is super angry at his mom and goes back and says, hey, I just realized, I learned that you made this up, that this is fake or whatever. And instead of the Karen trying to say, oh, I was tricked into believing it, I went on a faulty site, she straight up said, I was trying to do that for your own good. I don't want that person in our family. Like, I was trying to protect you. And sure enough, right, you know, the groom was like, no, mom, like, that's ridiculous. You're on thin ice. Like, you're on so thin ice. You're still invited to the wedding, but if you do anything, and I mean anything up until that point that even slightly upsets me or my wife, you are not being invited to your only son's wedding. So pretty big deal. And at this point, right, Axel and his family are sitting there at the table as they're being told the story, kind of just like, wow. Like, that's insane. And they really thought that, you know, the Karen was just going to, like, behave herself since, like, she was at the wedding. You know, she was the other family that was telling the story pointed her out at kind of the front of the room, right? Said, okay, that's, you know, who she is. Like, it's totally crazy or whatever. And, you know, Axel and his parents kind of expected her to not do anything insane. Well, a little spoiler, they were wrong. Real quick, comment Karen down below if you want to harden your comment. Just so you know, sometimes I don't get to hardening all the comments, or sometimes it takes me a while. So please don't take it personally if I don't heart the secret word of the day. Just know I appreciate you commenting either way and watching. I will do my best to heart your comment, though. Also, if you want to support the channel the best way you can, go ahead and binge watch a bunch of videos, like sit down and watch one of the playlists, or just watch a bunch of videos in the recommended. And please, let me know in the comment section like these people so I can heart it, say thank you, because literally this is you guys have been boosting the channel so much recently just by sitting down and binge watching videos. So please let me know if you're doing that so I can say thank you, as the last week has been incredibly tough for me, and to come to a channel that is doing so well, I really appreciate it. Anyways, back to the story, because it gets even crazier than the pre-story I just told you. So let's just skip ahead to the day of the wedding, which was the day after Axel and his parents were told about the whole story with the Karen. So anyways, right, Axel and his dad were just like, they got up early and they were just kind of like walking around or whatever, and they see, you know, the groom and a woman talking with each other, and very quickly they realize that the woman is the mom, aka the Karen, right? And they can't hear what's going on, but they definitely hear that, like, the groom is like, it looks like the groom is like kind of shouting at the Karen, and the Karen is shouting back and crossing her arms and kind of like shaking her head like or whatever, right? And, you know, Axel's dad looks down at Axel and being like, do you think that, you know, something interesting is going to happen today, son? Like, do you think anything like that story is going to happen today? And Axel's like, I don't know, Dad. Like, that'd be pretty crazy, but I guess, like, I guess we'll see. So anyways, skip ahead to the breakfast. So the whole ceremony was happening in the middle of the day, but they had kind of like a ceremonial breakfast. I don't know how, like, traditional that is, but that's just what they had. And at the very first table, which is the one with the bride and the groom, is supposed to be immediate family members. And, you know, Axel and his parents, you know, they looked over and they were looking for the Karen, and the Karen, aka the groom's dad, the groom's mom, was not sitting at the table. She was sitting at a table like a few over, and her arms were crossed. She was looking so angry. There was like a waiter coming over to just check in to see if everyone was doing okay, and they didn't hear exactly, right? They didn't hear exactly what was said, but they saw the Karen like flailing her arms, screaming at the guy, and like Axel Axel's dad looks down at Axel and is just like, I think we're gonna have a very interesting day today, son. That's all I can say. Yeah, so it was pretty apparent that the Karen was for some reason not invited to the groom's table, even though she was invited, the night before for dinner. So apparently maybe she was saying another thing to him in the morning about how he should really reconsider and how like his bride is terrible or whatever, and he was just not having it. So he's like, you're not kicked out, but you're not invited to the main table. And apparently like that made the Karen really, really mad, and she literally went crazy, as you'll see in where the story's about to go. So anyways, time goes on. Axel and his parents, they finish up breakfast, and then they have a very light lunch. Like, lunch wasn't even that official. There were just like some sandwiches out at tables or whatever. And around like 1:32, they were invited, like they were told to like, be dressed up and get ready to go into the church. So sure enough, they go into the church and they see where they're supposed to line up. All the parents or whatever are in the front rows. Even the Karen, like, she was still invited there for the wedding ceremony. I think the groom was just mad in the very beginning. And everyone is lining up. And obviously the bride and groom are still, like, behind the scenes, getting ready. You know how weddings work, right? And anyways, they walk up. And it's the ceremony. You hear like the dun 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 dun. It's like the standard ceremony. Axel's standing there. All the best men and women, they're up there, right? The bride and the groom, they go up. And sure enough, the ceremony begins. And it gets to the point, right? It gets pretty far in, and the Karen has done nothing. So Axel kind of just assumes that, like, all right, now I guess, like, I don't know, like the Karen is just going to chill out. She's not going to do anything crazy. She's not going to ruin her own son's wedding, right? Maybe she's just kind of realized that, she's looking bigger picture, and she's like, you know what? I still want to be an important part in my son's wedding, like at the end, or in my son's life at the end of the day. I can disagree with his choice and like in wife, but like I still want to, be a part of like my grandkids and my son. Look, maybe she was thinking bigger. Nope, she was not thinking bigger picture. She was just plotting a crazy act. But anyways, it gets to the point in the wedding where the priest guy, you know how it's like, if anyone has any reason why these two should not be wed, say so now or forever hold your peace. And when Axel heard this, he was kind of thinking to himself, all right, this is definitely the time when the Karen's going to say, in mid-thought, the Karen stands up. And everyone's head turns because everyone was sitting at this point, and the Karen stands up and says, yes, I do. And you could just see the look on the bride and groom's face. The bride was kind of shocked, and the groom was so mad. It was like cartoon smoke was coming out of his ears, level mad. Like, he was just not having it. And sure enough, the Karen goes on to say, like, son, don't do this. Don't betray me. And, the groom goes on to say, like, mom, like, I told you, this is my choice. You're being crazy. You're on thin ice in the first place. Like, what? Like, no, I'm not listening to you. And look, here's the thing. When the priest says, if anyone has anything to say so now, it's kind of a ceremonial thing. He doesn't actually want you to say something. If something needs to be said, please do it before, they're about to get, like, conjoined, married, like illegally married. Like, please do it a little bit before that. And maybe if your evidence is like fake stuff that you made up to try and frame this woman, maybe you're not in the right mental state to be doing that in the first place. But anyways, right, the Karen says, well, this, and she kind of like, she picks up one of her bags, right, is for, and she reaches into her bag, your own, whips out a fire extinguisher. Good. And dude, this is like, Axel's just watching this happen in slow motion, basically, as the Karen walks out of the stadium with the fire extinguisher and lets it rip. Sprays all over everyone in the front. So the bride, the groom, the priest, everyone who's there is just being completely covered in this kind of like fire extinguisher white foam stuff, and everyone starts screaming or whatever, and the Karen whips around and starts spraying it into the audience. It's just like, yeah, dude, it's like the craziest thing ever. And Axel's parents were very far back, so they weren't ever sprayed with it. But Axel's mom is like, oh my god. And Axel's dad literally turns to Axel and is like, I told you so, dude. So yeah, the Karen has essentially, right, opened up a fire extinguisher that she brought with her in her little tote bag or whatever, sprayed the bride and groom and literally everyone within like a 20-foot radius, completely destroying the wedding in a final attempt to keep like his son and like this woman from marrying, which like, I mean, I guess like isn't so shocking since she was willing to fake a police report saying something like really heinous and criminal just to get them not to marry in the first place. But you would have thought that the Karen would have been thinking about her future relationship with her son, her grandkids, the unity of the family. Like, nope, she was like, you know what? I could have that or I could have fire extinguisher. And I choose fire extinguisher, bro. And so by the end of like, she basically runs out of the entire container. And dude, that's a lot. Like, there's a lot of foam and fire extinguishers. So she's legitimately emptied the entire thing everywhere. And so some people, like, the screaming kind of stops because people are no longer shocked. And there's just like so many people are talking and people are looking at their dresses and their gowns and they're just kind of wiping off the foam off of them. And they're just like, oh my God, like this woman's insane. And they're just like wiping all the stuff off of. People are looking like, oh my God, my stuff's ruined, whatever. And the groom, right, walks down angrily and is like, Mom, you have, and it's like, he's not speaking in fully complete sentences because he's so angry. He's like, you have ruined my wedding. And the Karen says, well, I just did what was best for you. You should always know that I will always do what is best. And the groom is like, Mom, I don't think you understand what you just did. And sure enough, right, there's apparently like security at the wedding for some reason. I think it was a big enough event that they just thought, you know, the catering company or the company that did the weddings offered it as like another $500 we'll throw in security for the day, and they just check the box or whatever. So the two security guards who have never actually had to do anything at the wedding, at weddings in general, for once like actually did something, ran over and basically tackled the Karen. And she's like, oh my God, you're hurting me. Whatever, man. We don't care, bro. That's basically what the groom was thinking. But anyways, right, so the Karen is kind of like, yeah, not handcuffed because the security doesn't have handcuffs, but she was restrained. And like at this point, right, you know, the bride and groom are looking at each other like we should really, like, what do we do at this point? So basically, this is what ended up happening, right? So the bride and the groom decided that they were going to reschedule their official wedding day to like the next day because there were other events like planned for the next day, so people were still there. It would have been too hard to get everyone back together, right? It would have been too difficult to get everyone to like reschedule their flights, so they just decided to move the official wedding day to the next day and cancel any other fun things they had planned that day. Whatever, man, it sucks, but like no one can really prepare for a crazy Karen doing what the crazy Karen did, right? So anyways, you know, other than that, right, the police actually were called because the groom said, hey, call the police. My mom just went crazy. And the police came and it was told what happened, and the Karen was still restrained by the security guards, basically foaming at the mouth saying, let me go, let me go, let me go, or whatever, right? And, you know, the police are like, hey, like, I know this is your mom, so I don't know if you want to press charges. We get it if you don't. And dude, the groom was a complete savage and said, no, I want like the fullest extent of the law to be executed against her. And the Karen's like, my son, I was only doing it for you. And, you know, the dad and the groom's like, yeah, right, bro. Like, all right, then, sure, whatever you want to say, I guess. So the next day, the wedding happened again, and they kind of went through the ceremony all over again. And, you know, everyone was invited except one special lady, and that special lady was the Karen, believe it or not. And they had security at the door checking everyone who was coming in. That didn't happen the first day, but they got to make sure that the Karen didn't come in another day. And yeah, sure enough, they got married. It was a very nice ceremony. And on the way back, you know, Axel and his parents were just like, well, you know what, son, I know this is your first wedding, but this is not normally how weddings go.